The general who commanded 10,000 men died alone in his own palace, calling for help while his guards stood silent. Not because they were cowards, not because they didn't hear him. They heard every word, every desperate plea, every promise of gold and land and titles. And they stood there, frozen, watching him die. You want people to respect you, to listen when you speak, to care about what you think. But right now, you're walking the same path that led that general to die begging on cold marble. There are 3 signs you are losing respect without knowing it, and you are showing at least one of them right now. Let me show you how he fell, because his story is your warning. Marcus Tiberius returned from Gaul with the heads of 3 rebel kings and a wagon train of gold that stretched for a mile. The Senate gave him a triumph. The people gave him their voices. He rode through Rome like a god made flesh. But if you looked closely, if you watched the faces of the men who marched behind him, you would see something strange. They cheered, they raised their swords, but their eyes were empty, like men playing a part in a theater, like prisoners who learned to smile. Marcus never noticed. He saw the crowds and believed they loved him. He saw the gold and believed it proved his worth. He built a palace with marble from Egypt and fountains that ran with wine. He threw feasts where 100 men sat at his table, and every single one of them wanted to leave. A young soldier named Gaius came to him one night after a battle. The kid was maybe 20, blood still on his armor. He asked Marcus a simple question. "General, why did we attack from the east when the scouts said the west was undefended?" The tent went quiet, the kind of silence that feels like a blade. Marcus stared at him, not with curiosity, not with the patience of a teacher. He stared at him the way you stare at a dog that bit your hand. The next morning, in front of the entire legion, Marcus called Gaius forward, made him stand in the center while 10,000 men watched. "This soldier," Marcus said, his voice carrying across the field, "thinks he knows strategy better than his general." The laughter was loud, forced. Gaius's face went red. He never asked another question. But something shifted that day. The men stopped coming to Marcus with problems. They stopped asking for advice. They stopped speaking unless spoken to. Marcus thought he had won. He thought silence meant obedience. He didn't realize silence meant they had stopped trusting him with the truth. A rival general, Lucius Varro, set up camp 3 miles away. Varro was younger, less decorated, but when you walked past his tent at night, you heard something Marcus never heard in his own camp. Laughter, real laughter, the kind that comes from men who actually want to be there. Varro sat with his soldiers, ate the same food, asked them about their families. When a man had an idea, Varro listened. Sometimes he even changed his plans based on what they said. Marcus heard about this and sneered. "Weak," he said to his officers. "A general who begs for approval from common soldiers." His officers nodded. They always nodded, but their eyes drifted toward Varro's camp, where the fire burned brighter. Marcus doubled down. He gave stricter orders, harsher punishments for small mistakes. He stopped eating with the men entirely, built a separate dining hall just for himself and his inner circle. He thought distance created respect. He thought fear and authority were the same thing. He was building his own prison, one marble brick at a time. Marcus threw a feast after his next victory. Gold plates, wine from Greece, dancers from Persia. He stood at the head of the table and announced bonuses for every man, coins, land grants, promotions. The room erupted in applause. He smiled. Finally, he thought, finally they see my generosity. But if you watched their faces, really watched, you'd see the applause died the second he looked away. You'd see men leaning to each other, whispering. You'd see smiles that never reached their eyes. They took his gold. They bowed their heads. But not one of them stayed longer than required. Marcus told himself it was respect, that they were so in awe of him they couldn't relax in his presence. The truth was simpler, crueler. They didn't want to be near him. Generosity given without warmth is just a transaction. And transactions don't build loyalty. They build resentment. The assassination plot was discovered by accident. A servant overheard 2 officers talking in the stables. 50 men were involved. 50 men who had planned to kill Marcus during the next campaign. Here's what shattered him. They had been planning it for 6 months. 6 months. And not one person told him. Not his advisors, not his guards, not the soldiers who ate at his table. 50 men knew he was going to die, and the only reason he found out was because a servant needed to feed the horses. Marcus called an emergency meeting. He stood before his officers, his voice shaking. "Why didn't you tell me?" he demanded. They looked at the floor, at the walls, anywhere but his eyes. One finally spoke. "We didn't think you'd listen, General." The room felt like a tomb. Marcus realized for the first time that fear is not loyalty, that a man surrounded by thousands can still be completely alone, that respect cannot be commanded. It can only be earned. But the realization came too late. They poisoned him at his own table, during his own celebration. He felt it the moment the wine hit his throat, a burning that spread like wildfire through his chest. The cup fell, shattered on marble. The sound echoed through the hall. Marcus looked at his guards, 20 of them, armed, loyal, paid. "Help me," he gasped. His voice was a rasp. "Please, I'll give you anything. Gold, land, titles." They didn't move. He fell to his knees, crawled toward them. "I am your general," he choked out. "I command you." One guard looked down at him. No anger in his eyes, no satisfaction, just nothing. "You were never our general," the man said quietly. "You were just the man who gave orders." They walked out, every single one. And Marcus was left alone on the floor of his palace, surrounded by gold and marble and empty chairs. He crawled across his own palace, alone. The pain was everywhere now, but worse than the poison was the silence, the absolute crushing silence. His mind replayed everything. The young soldier he humiliated, the men he never learned the names of, the rival general whose camp rang with laughter while his own men sat in cold silence. Every time he chose authority over connection. Every time he mistook fear for respect. He thought of the feasts where no one stayed. The victories that felt hollow. The way people stopped looking him in the eye months ago. And he told himself it was reverence. It was contempt. He was surrounded by people for 20 years. And he died alone. Because he built walls instead of bridges. Because he thought respect was something you take, not something you earn. In his last moments, Marcus saw Gaius's face, the young soldier who asked a question, who trusted him with honesty, who he destroyed for it. He understood then. Varro would be mourned. His men would weep at his funeral. They would tell stories about him for generations, not because he was the strongest, not because he had the most gold, because he made them feel seen. Marcus would be forgotten by sunrise, a body removed, a name crossed off a list, because respect cannot be taken. It can only be given freely, and you earn it in the small moments, the questions you answer with patience, the truth you welcome instead of punish, the laughter you share instead of silence you enforce. He died reaching for ghosts, for the connection he spent a lifetime refusing. You are Marcus, not literally, but you are walking his path. There are 3 signs you are losing respect without knowing it, and if you recognize even one, you are already halfway to dying alone in a palace you built yourself. Sign 1. People stop disagreeing with you. When was the last time someone challenged your idea? When was the last time someone said, "I think you're wrong about this"? If it's been months, you didn't win. You lost. Because people who respect you trust you with the truth. When they stop disagreeing, it means they stopped believing you'll listen. You trained them to shut up, and now you're surrounded by yes men who smile while planning their exit. Sign 2. Your victories feel hollow. You got the promotion, the raise, the recognition, and it felt empty. Like eating a feast alone. That's because no one is celebrating with you. They're celebrating for you. Going through the motions. Real respect means people are genuinely happy for your success. Hollow victories mean they're waiting for you to fail. Sign 3. You're surrounded but alone. You're in rooms full of people. You have followers, contacts, a network, but you feel isolated. That's because you have crowds without connection. You have transactions without trust. You built a palace, but you forgot to build a home. And palaces are just prisons made of marble. Here's how you stop walking toward Marcus's fate. Step 1. Ask one question tomorrow. Find someone, anyone, and ask, "What's one thing I could do better?" Then shut up. Don't defend. Don't explain. Just listen. The hardest part isn't asking. It's receiving the answer without destroying the person who gave it. Step 2. Share one meal this week. Not a business lunch, not a networking event. Sit with someone and eat. No agenda, no pitch, just connection. Ask about their life, their struggles. Listen like their answer matters, because it does. Step 3. Welcome one disagreement. The next time someone challenges you, say this: "Tell me more." Not sarcastically, not defensively, with genuine curiosity. Respect grows in the space between your ego and their honesty. You have a choice. You can keep building your palace. Keep demanding respect through titles and fear and distance. Keep telling yourself that silence means admiration. Or you can do what Marcus never did. You can choose connection over control. Humanity over hierarchy. Truth over comfort. One path ends with crowds at your funeral weeping because they lost someone irreplaceable. The other ends with a room full of people who showed up because it was required. Marcus died reaching for help that never came. Don't let that be your ending. Respect is earned in whispers, in small moments, in the willingness to be human instead of perfect. Choose wisely.